I began to work simultaneously with children, normal kids, gifted kids, kids with learning problems, and with brain damaged adults, people who were once fine, but who had a stroke or a tumor or a missile accident. And the more I spent with working with these two populations, and it was important that I was seeing kids every day and brain damaged patients every day, the more I became convinced that kind of in a gut level that it was much too simple to say smart, average, dumb, that people could be very good in one thing, average in a second thing, and not very good in a third. That's an intuition which I'm sure has been had by millions of people over the years. I think I then did two things which were important academically. Number one, I set up a series of criteria to essentially define what the human faculties were. And then I decided, and I never remembered how it happened, but it was important to call these intelligences. Mm-hmm. If I'd written a book called 7 or 8 or 9 Talents, and said people can have different kinds of talents, everybody would say, what else is new? Because we know they're musicians, they're athletes, they're chess players, and so on. But it was the notion of saying there are 8 or 9 faculties. What we usually call smart is a conjunction of language and logic, but it doesn't say anything about spatial ability, about musical ability, about the capacity to solve problems using your hands or your body, about understanding other people, understanding yourself, being able to make distinctions in the natural world. Those are different faculties. And I think what sealed the deal in 1980 was we could find some neurological evidence that the language abilities came from one part of the brain, musical abilities second, and so on. So in the early 80s, I promulgated the theory of multiple intelligences, often called MI theory.
I believe that every child is gifted. And when I say that, I don't mean that I feel like every child's going to be able to go into a testing room and get 130 or 140 on an IQ test. I'm really looking at a model of intelligence that goes way beyond IQ. The theory of multiple intelligences, developed by Dr. Howard Gardner at Harvard University. And Dr. Gardner said that our concept of intelligence has been far too limited. It's been yoked to this notion of IQ. Now, he defines intelligence as the ability to solve problems, fashion products. He says when you use these two particular criteria, you can see that there are, in fact, many different kinds of intelligence in one form. And he initiated 7 intelligences, and more recently has added intelligence is the linguistic intelligence, the intelligence of words, the storyteller, the intelligence of the great writer or the novelist or the poet or the playwright. This is an intelligence that we put a great deal of emphasis on in the schools, perhaps too much emphasis at the expense of the other. The second intelligence is logical mathematical intelligence, which is the intelligence of a mathematician, a tax accountant, a scientist. And this is also an intelligence that we have honored, that we have valued a great deal in our culture and in our schools. It seems like ever since the Russians put Sputnik up back in the mid-50s and set on being competitive internationally in the math and science arena. So these two intelligences, Gardner's told us, the linguistic and the logical mathematical, are the two that the schools have focused the most attention on, that IQ testing draws upon for the most part. And those intelligences are very important, don't get me wrong, yet they leave out a great deal of what is known about human potential. So Gardner talks about other intelligences. The spatial intelligence, which is the intelligence of pictures and images, of an artist, of an architect, of a landscape designer, people who are really good with looking at space, looking at color, looking at the use of line and form. And this is an intelligence that typically gets undervalued in our schools. Some of my own research that a lot of kids who get labeled dyslexic, for example, may in fact have high levels of spatial intelligence. And they tend to look at things in picture and image ways. And when they're shown a picture, let's say, of a small case B or a small look at it with a 360-degree mind. And so when they read it or write it, they may be flip-flopping. And that appears to us as a disability. But in fact, if you look at it within the context of the theory of multiple intelligences, these kids are actually showing us an incredible ability which can lead to a success in life. The fourth intelligence is the bodily kinesthetic intelligence, the intelligence of the athlete, the intelligence of the dancer, the crafts person, the individual who can make beautiful things with their hands. And this is also an intelligence that we've typically undervalued in the school. We talk about the dumb child. Oh, it's too bad he can't make it in the academic school, as if somehow working with the hands is inferior to words. And yet, if you go back to the Greek era 2,000 years ago, you'll find that mind and body were considered as gymnastics, as mental training. And I think Gardner is suggesting in bodily kinesthetic intelligences that we need to re-heal the split that's occurred between the mind and the body. I find that there are a lot of kids out there who are highly bodily kinesthetically intelligent who get labeled as hyperactive or labeled with America's new learning disease, ADD or ADHD. These are kids that learn best by moving and building and touching. And if they have to sit still in a desk for any period of time, it's going to be agony for them. And of course they're going to twitch and fidget and get out of their desk and get things in their hands and want to get involved physically. Intelligence of, the composer, the DJ, the individual has a good sense of rhythm, of tone, of timbre. The kid that knows all the songs that are out these days, who has just an incredible sense of ability to remember tunes, to reproduce them, either through voice or maybe through a musical instrument. And this is an intelligence that we typically regard as a talent, not as an intelligence. We say, oh yeah, that he has a talent for music. Not very intelligent, but he has a talent for music. And we put it out in the periphery of our educational structures. We have our music class, we have our band, but if there's a problem with the budget in a school district, who do they lop off first from the budget? Do they get rid of the reading program? No. Do they get rid of the math and science program? No. Do they get rid of the computers? No. They get rid of the music program. They get rid of the orchestra. They get rid of the band, thinking that it's dispensable. But there's a lot of new research coming out suggesting that music is instrumental in a child's thinking processes. We know that young children who are exposed to regular music instruction actually do increase their IQ scores, increase their ability to perform on a variety of measures, especially relating, interestingly enough, to spatial and temporal related kinds of abilities. So this is a very important intelligence that Gardner is saying we've got to look at in a whole new way. Now the next intelligence is the interpersonal. This is people smarts, the intelligence of the business person, the intelligence that the politician has to sometimes manipulate people, the intelligence of the family counselor who can mediate disputes between people. We know people, in fact, who have something called dyssemia, which is kind of like dyslexia, only it's for people. People who have trouble reading other people. They miss social cues. They miss social signs. And these are the awkward people in social settings. And we know them. We've had them over for dinner. We've had them for coffee, and now it's getting late and it's time for them to go, but they're not reading our signs. We're looking at our watch, we're stretching, and they're not reading us. And it's kind of like dyslexia for people. And it's a very important thing to be able to master, the ability to get along with each other, the ability to understand what another person wants, what they intend, what motivates them. Some of these skills can actually lead to more success in life than being able to read and write. Someone recently has talked about EQ, the emotional intelligence, being more important than IQ. That out in life, there are people with low IQs in charge of people with high IQs, but these low IQ people actually have a great deal of EQ, the ability to get along with others. So Gardner, I think, has done a great service in suggesting that interpersonal intelligence is something that we need to give a great deal more emphasis to in the schools. And then the final of the 7 that he initially introduced is the intrapersonal intelligence. Intra, I-N-T-R-A, means within. And so intrapersonal intelligence is the intelligence of knowing who we are, of self. It's knowing where we've been in our life. It's knowing where we are now, knowing what we're good at, what we're not good at. It's also knowing where we're going in our life. It's the intelligence of goal setting, the intelligence of having a vision for your life, of a sense of destiny, and so forth. And Dr. Gardner says this is probably the most important intelligence of all, because if we don't know who we are inside, then we can't use the other intelligences that we may have at our disposal.